What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So ever since that video showed up on X showcasing a flash cart for the Switch, people have been wondering when the full product itself would be unveiled. Well, that did happen yesterday, and it's led to a number of new questions, and we'll go over all of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about PlayStation Plus Essential for the month of January, with those games being revealed, and actually like a pretty good lineup. And we'll also be talking about a major feature that could find its way into Sony's next generation platform that we assume to be the PlayStation 6. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. We're gonna start today with Fortnite and their Fortnite festival or music festival mode. If you look at the gameplay, it basically looks like the old days of Guitar Hero and Rock Band. It's just part of what Fortnite is now calling itself, a place or a metaverse, a platform. And they, of course, have plans to continue growing out even further. But this is interesting because it's Harmonix, who, of course, is known for Guitar Hero and Rock Band from back during the Xbox 360 or PS2 generation, when that hype was absolutely ridiculous. And now it appears they're pushing to go a bit further with this one, even allowing you to use some of those older guitars. Now, this was in an interview. We can see some of the bullet points here shared over on X, but this is an interview with Game Informer and the head of Harmonix, saying that we'll add a new song every week, so that's when Epic is back on break, but we'll try to support as many legacy guitars as possible, such as old Rock Band guitars. No plans to make new guitars, though. They're just going to support the older ones and then allow third parties to make peripherals that work in that mode. And I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity for just Epic in general, but maybe they don't want to get too into the peripheral, the accessory side of this whole thing. Keep it to the mode itself or the game at that point, and then just allow third parties to, I assume, use the Fortnite branding, because that seems like easy money. These guitars that go into stores and Fortnite's branded right on it. But it's interesting that Fortnite has gotten so popular that it very well could revive that entire plastic accessory music genre with Guitar Hero and Rock Band, which also makes me wonder if that would start to open the door for maybe the revival of Guitar Hero over at Activision, of course, being part of Microsoft now. But very interesting stuff there. If you still have that Rock Band guitar in the closet, you might be able to use it here pretty soon in Fortnite. Also, we are now 1 month away from Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth release, and it seems like people, obviously fans of Like a Dragon, the entire Yakuza series, are very, very excited about this one. And the more I hear about it, the more I get it. It is looking pretty good. I enjoyed Yakuza Like a Dragon. So the most recent release, of course, going to that turn-based RPG combat system. And now it looks like Infinite Wealth will carry on and, of course, make it even more out there and ridiculous at times based on some of the clips. But it appears you're going to have quite the story to go through. Now, this we can see was posted up over on X from Okami, who is citing an interview here with the RGG studio director, saying Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth will be roughly 70 plus hours for the main story alone. You'll have 2 protagonists, tons of side content for each. But that's 70 hours as described as basically 2 to 3 days of just constant playing. Wouldn't include that side content or very little of it. So it just seems like this is going to be a massive, massive game. So exciting stuff there. Again, it's coming out right at the end of January. That should be January 26th. And I will be picking it up when it comes out. I'm really excited to dive back into the Like a Dragon series. I'm not the biggest fan necessarily. I'm not following every single entry, but something about Yakuza Like a Dragon, maybe it's that turn-based combat, really caught me, and I am interested to follow Ichiban forward here to see what's in store with Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Oh, and a quick heads up, Epic Games Store has been continuing their just giveaways of different titles for the holidays, and the most recent one is pretty interesting. We can see this over on their page. It is Curse to Golf. I have not played this game. However, I have heard from a couple people that this is a pretty interesting, fun indie title, so go ahead and claim it. It's available until 11 a.m. today on December 28th, after which they will be unlocking another mystery game. So I'll have a link down below if you want to go check it out on their free games page, but you might as well claim these, especially if you already just have an Epic Games Store account. It's like why not? You just drop them in your library and you have them. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this flash cart for the Switch that took the internet by storm when it showed up in just a random X video that kind of just out of nowhere. Here is a flash cart that the person is dropping in and out of their Switch, and it's turning into all of these different games, very reminiscent of the R4 card that was very, very popular with the DS and eventually the carts we got for the 3DS. However, we didn't really know much about it then. Now we do. Okay, so this was from the same account on X. You can see a very long post here from Aftertime X, who seemed to uncover more details around this first Switch flash cart. We have a name for it. It's called the MIG Switch. And in fact, their website, also listed here, migswitch.com, is completely populated, has a bunch of other information on there as well that we can go through. But I will say this, when you go to their website, the first thing that pops up is essentially text that says, hey, don't look at us when it comes to piracy or illegal backups. That all voids your warranty. It's very clear they understand Nintendo is looking at this project completely and is thinking, how can we knock them out of this? Because they are skating the line, of course, when it comes to piracy with a product like this, as let's face it, a lot of people would use this cart to just download games and put them on their Switch. Nonetheless, some of the details we have here, with MIG Switch, of course, now being the name of that flash cart. I will mention, Aftertime X did decline a review copy with those same concerns. Like, well, the situation when it comes to backups and stuff in our country, kind of gray area. We don't want to deal with it. We just want to disperse the info. So there you go. But the current ROMs, so the ones that are floating around online, of course, that you see, like when a game breaks street date and it leaks online and people are playing it in emulators, those current ROM files are not supported. This uses a different file format. We're not really sure why that is, as it didn't seem like they were able to determine that after Time X, but it appears you would need to use, for this part anyway, dumping it, either a modded Switch or a piece of hardware they're going to sell as well that's going to allow you to dump your games to, I assume, your PC, and then you can move it over to an SD card that then runs on the cartridge. The cartridge itself does work on all of the different types of Switches with official firmware, so you do not need to modify your system to use this cartridge. That seems to be kind of getting mixed up a bit online, because you would need a modded Switch to dump your games, of course, using a program they provide. But if you, say, just had the files already from using their dumping hardware, you would just be able to put them on the cartridge and play it normally on your regular Switch. Okay, so with that in mind, in order to jump around between each game on the cartridge, you do have to take the cartridge out and then drop it back in, and apparently reinserting and removing it, reinserting when that LED is lighting is how you switch through the games. Seems a little weird to me to have to go that far, because let's say you have 30 games. Was it you have a big SD card on there, 30 games are loaded up, all of course ones you legally own, they're on your shelf right now, you just want to have it on one cartridge. Does that mean you have to eject the game and then drop it back in maybe 27 times to get to a game at the back of your file list? That seems a bit redundant and annoying and would get very tedious over time, especially if you go to it and then you miss it by one and you have to go all the way back around the horn or something. I think there are better ways they go about it. They've mentioned using a button maybe on it, or I think, look, if you're going to have a product like this, and let's face it, it's going to sell for, it's not going to be cheap, I don't think anyway. I think it'd be better to have something like a little OLED screen on there. Again, I know that sounds kind of fancy, but a way to be able to see what game is up, even if it's just like a number and you just kind of cycle through it that way with a few buttons, rather than have to, I feel like, wear out your cartridge slot in your Switch unnecessarily when there are just better ways to do it. Now, according to Aftertime X, because they wanted to dive a bit more into the online aspect of this, could you actually do that? Well, it doesn't seem as clear-cut, and at this time, I would not get into this flash cart thinking you're going to go online and play a bunch of games. One, I think Nintendo is going to attempt to work around this and figure out ways to detect something like this, and would probably ban you anyway. And I think this is going to be one of those situations where they say, hey, Nintendo can't patch this, okay? But just in case, it is upgradable, as in we can update this thing going forward to fight back against any potential firmware updates that would make this incompatible, which I think means you're going to constantly be updating this flash cart very similarly to how, say, different things when it comes to the hacking scene and custom firmware is updated every time there is just a basic firmware for official purposes pushed by Nintendo. You might be having to update this firmware and this flash card over and over and over again just to keep up with Nintendo's changes. One other thing with this is when it comes to buying this cartridge, they're apparently going to go through just distributors, as in if they're online storefronts that you may know really well now for selling EverDrives or what have you there, they're going to have them be sold to them wholesale, and then they'll be selling, obviously, to customers, which, I mean, that's not new necessarily. It is a bit odd that they wouldn't just sell it themselves, and I understand why people are kind of questioning that method when, at this time, setting up a very basic like Shopify page or what have you, right, to be able to process orders through a website. It's easier than ever currently, but again, I still wonder if they're looking at this thinking, okay, Nintendo is absolutely keeping tabs on us right now. If you look at their website, it's pretty clear that they don't want to get too close to the idea of putting ROMs that you download online. And let's face it, even though they're using a proprietary format, as soon as people start dumping these cartridges to their PC, they're just going to upload it to those same websites people are going to now and downloading ROM files. And it'll just be another tab, I'm sure, that you click and you download it that way. So whether they like it or not, they will become part of that scene. And Nintendo, they're not exactly going to be excited about that. But certainly still a lot of questions around this flash cartridge, whether it's the pricing, which I'm still very curious how much they're going to be asking for something like this, the upgrade process, can Nintendo actually block this thing? Will it get you banned online? Is the hardware dumper something that you buy separately or comes with the cartridge? And who exactly is behind this entire project? Well, January is right around the corner, so I guess we'll find out some answers to these questions here pretty soon. Next up, let's talk about PlayStation Plus Essential, which actually looks pretty good for January. Now, these games will go live January 2nd, and we can see this over on PlayStation Blog with the card at the top, starting with, that's right, Plague Tale Requiem. That is a really good offering to have here for PlayStation Plus Essential tier. Then we have Evil West, that's PS5 and PS4, and Nobody Saves the World on the PS5 and PS4. So obviously the standout one here would be A Plague Tale Requiem. Absolutely, if you haven't played it. I mean, technically the first one, you probably want to play that too, but like, I feel like you could just jump into this and for the most part understand what's going on and get a kick out of it. But it's very, very impressive when it comes to the visuals and I'll say some of the physics around certain mechanic in the game. Won't go too far into it because there are some genuinely shocking moments that happen in the game that revolve around around some of that. Evil West, I played some of it. You know, I gotta say, this Evil West kind of feels like that, I'll say, AA game from the Xbox 360 PS3 generation. But for being in PlayStation Plus, I think it's worth at least downloading, throwing some hard drive space or solid state drive space at it and giving it a shot. And then Nobody Saves the World is a genuinely fun game. So I think this is a good way to start out the year for PlayStation Plus Essential, which I do think needs to continue upping their game, considering it is more expensive. It's $80 a year. It's not $60 anymore. So these are the kind of lineups that I expect every single month. And I know it's going to be hard for Sony to keep up with something like, oh, here's a Plague Tale, here's Evil West, but they've kind of put the pressure on themselves now with that price increase. So with that in mind, very curious what their PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium tier will offer, which we'll find out actually in a couple of weeks, because I'm still waiting for them to drop an actual PS2 offering, one done through emulation. Maybe they'll start off 2024 in January with that first game, but I'm not exactly holding my breath. I'm just kind of expecting more PSP and PS1 games here and there. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a pretty big feature that Sony could be sizing up maybe for next generation or even a PlayStation 5 Pro, I guess, as most of us are expecting that at this time for holiday 2024 after the PlayStation Portal and that new PlayStation 5 or the Slim ended up being real. That was the last part of that report, and now we're kind of looking towards next year for that to be the case. But there is a patent that's popped up that is not at all surprising to me because it does involve our game consoles working with artificial intelligence to maybe mold and craft some of the gameplay tips to help us out and even interact with the game while we're going through it. Now, this was brought to my attention, we can see here over on Tweaktown, saying PS5 Pro or next-gen PlayStation 6. may use AI processor for real-time predictive gaming. Now, they point to this patent here, saying systems and methods for enabling predictive assistance during gameplay. The abstract says a method for providing assistance during gameplay is described. The method includes accessing a profile model associated with a user account of a user. The profile model is used to generate one or more predictive indicators based on a plurality of game contexts of one or more games. The method further includes receiving a request for accessing a game for a game session via the user account and generating assistance input for the user responsive to the one or more predictive indicators that the user will be unable to complete a task in the game. The task is associated to a game context. The assistance input is provided before the user performs the task. Here's something interesting. If you look at the assistance input data where they have a diagram here showing it, they also still have a PlayStation controller that has a screen on it. I wonder if that's something Sony is considering for next generation, or if they maybe have a new controller that they've been working on that would include an LCD or a screen where that touchpad is. That they've continued to try to use that touchpad. It always feels like a second thought for any of the games out there that would utilize it. It's just, to me, it still feels kind of like a waste being there. And if a screen can, well, okay, I'd like the controller to last more than an hour in terms of battery, but either way, if they can work that out, and then you have artificial intelligence analyzing your gameplay as you're going through something, and it realizes you're having a hard time and maybe you want to quit, and then it kind of maybe tries to help you out a bit. For example, maybe you're playing a Souls game and I realize this boss has killed you 20 times. Not necessarily in a row, but over the last week, right? And you're stuck. Well, you go into the next boss fight, all of a sudden, indicator buttons pop up above your character telling you when to dodge, when to parry, maybe even what items to use at the right time in order to win. These are things that I'm sure Sony is looking at, probably Microsoft as well, to tie AI in so that people don't just drop games and walk away from their system. Remember, they're all about engagement, and I think another barrier of entry, we talk about obviously the console itself, maybe even the controller, but the other barrier of entry is just some games become very difficult with different spikes in difficulty throughout. And if you're able to kind of smooth that out for more mainstream players, consumers who play 1 or 2 games a year, but you can keep them engaged, maybe even bring them in to the ecosystem more because they feel like they're good at games, then there you go. Maybe they need an AI assistant. Who cares? It's a single player game and they're having fun, and that's what they're trying to figure out here. But I am curious if they really dive into the idea of AI with like a co-processor on the board and maybe explore other ideas. But that is something I think will find its way into, I definitely think, next generation systems. I don't know if it'll show up in something like the PS5 Pro or any other iteration this generation, but I think next generation, with whatever Microsoft has and whatever Sony has, you're probably going to hear AI quite a bit during that presentation. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, which is Game of the Year Madness, and it was a pretty good matchup. It was Spider-Man 2 versus Resident Evil 4. At the time of this recording, Resident Evil 4 is ahead, 56% to 44%. It shows how strong Resident Evil 4 still is, and I know it's a remake of the GameCube game from Capcom, 20 some odd years ago just about now, but it's a great game. What can you say, right? RE4, of course, was up there as a Game of the Year nominee during the Keighley's, the Game Awards, so not too surprising that it's pushing along here. This time, though, ahead of Spider-Man 2, and that sets up a pretty good showdown, I feel like. Baldur's Gate 3 versus RE4. It should be fun. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as we're seeing here. This is from Lego Boys. Says, update from Pretendo. Apparently they have a contact with Nintendo, and Nintendo has apparently now fixed the issue of new users being unable to play online. Though I haven't tested it myself yet. I'm a new Wii U owner myself. It seemingly was accidental. Also an issue with Mario Maker resulting from Amazon deprecating a version of AWS it used has also been fixed. Other issues still haven't been resolved yet, but the major one about new players everyone was talking about has been resolved apparently. That's good to know. Hey, let me know down below, I guess, if you're a new player for your Wii U or your 3DS when it comes to signing up for online and getting that set up, and if you're able to play now. Just keep in mind, it's not going to be very long. We assume 4 more months, probably really 3 months, as I'm sure once April starts, Nintendo's out. Like, all right, it's over. We're done with that. But it is good to hear that they were able to resolve that for the last couple of months, that these systems will technically be active online. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below, but everything we talked about here today was the first Nintendo Switch flash cart called the MIG Switch coming out next month, or do you think Nintendo's going to have something to say about that? Let me know. And then also, what about the PlayStation Plus Essential Games? Plague Tale Requiem for January looks pretty good, I think. And then what about AI in newer systems coming up, to PlayStation 6 and the next Xbox? Do you like the idea of integration there, maybe to make these experiences a bit more personal as it analyzes your gameplay the entire time? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.